The Premier League is finally back on Friday, and I was going to give my bottom three predictions. The team I think will just escape relegation, and then my top five, and maybe also some Europa League and Champions League predictions, as those will be starting soon as well. So, beginning with my first team relegated, I'm going to have Ipswich. And it's obviously kind of just like boring and obvious to pick a team that just got promoted, but I just feel like Ipswich is going to have a lot of problems in the Premier League. They obviously brought in a lot of talent like Enciso, Uatara, Lukic, Maeda, Diop, Emerson. Um, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough to really compete in the Prem because they brought in so many players. I just named a few of who they brought in, but they brought in so many players to where it's basically an entirely new team, and that's just too hard for a team like Ipswich where they're just coming up to really be able to adapt with that team and be able to compete in the Premier League. Um, so really, I mean, I feel like their really only chance to stay up is if they just get out of the Leagues Cup and the FA Cup very early and have to really focus on the Prem, because I just feel like they have too much going on to um, adapt quickly enough to be able to get enough points to stay up. Because I don't think they're going to get very many points no matter what they do. Then at 20th, I'm going to have Hull, which is another newly promoted team. And I kind of have them staying down or going back down for the complete opposite reason. And that reasoning is I just don't think they brought in enough talent. They made some notable signings like Zolakis, good keeper that they paid 27 million for, and Nobel Mendy, who they paid 28 or yeah. And I just think that they didn't bring enough players to really make an impact. They don't have that many players in their squad to really be able to switch around, especially if something like an injury were to happen. And especially really if a player like McBurney or Geldhart go down, because they don't have any other goal scorers. Um, I was looking at their roster, and they have, I think the other three forwards they have outside of McBurney had like a total of 5 goals last year in the championship. So it's just they're not going to have enough firepower really to get back or to stay in the Prem this year. Obviously, it was a little bit surprising that they were able to get to the Prem. A lot had to happen for that. And so yeah, they're going to be my second relegated team, but I don't think that's too surprising. And then my last relegated team is going to be a team that's been in the Prim for a couple of years now, and that'll be Nottingham Forest. Um, they were pretty bad last year. They were 16th, I think, last year in the Prem. So they were pretty close to getting relegated, and I just think that they didn't do enough to really make me have confidence in what they have for this year. Um, Obviously brought in a player like Usman Diomande and Saw, but I just don't know. They didn't bring in too much. They were already bad last year, and they really have no like real goal scorer. They have a couple guys who can maybe get some shots in there and maybe score some goals, but it's just not enough. You need someone consistent when you're really trying to stay up, and I just don't think they have it. And the team that I do think has it is the team that I'm going to um, pick to be the first team that's staying up, and that'll be Coventry City. Uh, and the player I think they have that'll keep them up really is Haji Wright, who is honestly was a superstar striker in the championship. He's American, so I like him a lot. But I think not only do they have a player like Haji Wright who's going to score a lot of goals for them this year, but I think they just have a good mix of bringing in new faces, but also having enough returners um, to make it work. Kind of a mix of what Hull and Ipswich did, but just the perfect amount, in my opinion. Brought in Rushworth, Aminda, Chuanu, and yeah, I really feel like they are going to have what it takes to stay in this year. They also have Frank Lampard as their coach, and I really like that. So, yeah, I just feel like if any team out of the newly promoted sides were to stay up, it's going to be Coventry. They obviously won the championship last year, so it's not like crazy to say that they're the team that's going to do it, but that's I feel like is a pretty safe choice of the relegated sides plus the one I think will be just enough. Now moving over to my top five, and starting in fifth, I have Villa. Um, Obviously, Aston Villa lost a big player in Morgan Rogers in this last transfer window, but I think that they've done enough to kind of not replace him fully because I don't think they can. He was such an important player for them, but they've done enough to really give themselves depth in that midfield position while also not wasting their entire like paycheck that they got from Morgan Rogers by getting someone like João Gomez and Manzambi. I think they've really like bulked up at that midfield position. You're obviously replacing one player with two, and I think that's going to be important for them this year as they now are, in the Champions League. And I think although it'll be a little rough for them starting out, I think they're not going to do much in the Champions League this year to where uh, they're going to get out of it early enough to still be able to compete in the Premier League. So really my thoughts are they're going to start off really rough in the Prem. Because they're going to be focusing a lot on the Champions League, and I just don't think it'll be enough in the Champions League to really get past that initial knockout, or not knockout, but league stage. But then I think they'll come back and be able to outperform teams like Chelsea, who I have in sixth place. And so, yeah, I think Villa is the perfect team to put in fifth, because I just think they have a good enough roster to stay up. But players like Garnacho, the cursed one, might hurt them. Now going to fourth place is going to be where I put City. And really my thinking of this, I'm obviously recording this after the Community Shield, and I don't think that's a game I really want to look too much into just because it's I don't think of it as a friendly, but it's also not too much more than that. And they just played so awful in that. But I don't want to look into that too much. I just feel like looking at losing Pep, who has dominated the Prem in the past 10 years, and then also losing a player like Rodri, who's obviously a Ballon d'Or winner. You're going to start off really rough, and I think that's what's going to stop City from competing is the start of the season. I think by January, they'll really be able to pick up the pace and get back into not what they've been doing in the past 10 years, but enough to compete. But I don't think I think it'll be too late for them by that point. And obviously players like Elliot Anderson will help. I think Holland's going to have an insane year. But I just don't think they'll be able to really compete until a point like January, and I think it'll be too late by that point. So that's why I have them at fourth. Now going to third place, I have Liverpool. They obviously lost Salah. He is now in Turkey, I think. And they also have a new coach there And I think it's going to be similar to City. Obviously, they didn't have their last coach for very long. They had problems with him. So I think they're going to be a little bit more inspired at the start of the season than City will be. And that's why I think they'll finish above City. But I think they're going to have a similar problem of just not having enough to compete until the later parts of the season. And I don't think it'll be enough. And that's why I really feel like the title race is going to run away with the top two. Really, even my number one, I just feel like no one's going to compete with them. Um, and so yeah, that's why I have Liverpool at 3. I also just don't think they did too much in the transfer window. There's obviously still 2 weeks, and they're a big club, so they absolutely could still do something. I know they were talking about Barcola for a while, um, and I bet they will find another winger of some sorts to kind of replace Salah, but I just don't know. They haven't done too much. They've only really made two real moves, getting Ronald Arroyo and Munoz, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to do enough to really compete for long. I think they'll finish above City, though, and that's why I have them at 3rd. Now, in a big step up, though, my number 2 spot is going to be Manchester United. They also haven't done too much in the transfer window. I just feel like they're going to stay consistent like they were last year. They finished 3rd last year. I think they'll finish 2nd this year. And yeah, I just feel like they will be able to do enough to get into that 2nd place spot because they have less stuff going around them with coaching wise. I think Carrick's going to be able to really bring this team together even more than they were last year. I think that dude will finally be able to cut his hair if they can win 5 games in a row. I think they will. And so yeah, I think they're going to be a great team this year, but I think something that's going to hold them back definitely is going to be the fact that they're going to be in the Champions League this year. And that's something that they didn't have to deal with last year, which is, I think, why they made it into 3rd place last year. But I think that being in the Champions League will stop them from fully competing to win the Prem this year, and that's why my number 1 team in the Prem and my repeat winners are going to be Arsenal. I just feel like they are undoubtedly the best team. I'd be shocked if anybody really has a different team winning the Prem, just because Arsenal were already the best team last year. They're the only team that has a coach as good as Arteta because he is the best coach in the Prem. And I think they've done a good job in the transfer portal. I think they're going to do a bit more. But I think they've done a good job getting players like Zolis, who is already showing off for Arsenal, 2 assists in the Community Shield matchup. And he's just insane at getting those assists in any other games. But then also a player like Bruno Guimaraes, who could be the transfer of the season. And so I just feel like Arsenal are going to be the real threats for winning the Prem this year. The only thing I could see holding them back is that I think they're going to be really focused on the Champions League this year. They obviously lost on penalties last year in the Champions League final, but I think that they can focus on the Champions League and still easily win the Prem this year with how good they are. I think they're miles better than any other team, and I think they'll win by, honestly, at least 10 points. So yeah, that's who I'm going to have winning the Premier League this year. Now, for the Europa League, I was going to pick for that. And I just don't feel like any English clubs have a chance at it this year. Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and Sunderland are all the teams there. And I just don't know if any of them have a real shot of winning it. I don't know. I could be surprised, but I just don't think so. But that's why I'm going to pick Juventus to win the Europa League this year. I think that them and AC Milan are teams that I don't think, definitely didn't want to be in the Europa League this year, but I think they're going to take this year to really show off and prove that they shouldn't be there. and I think they will get the job done. So Juventus is going to be my Europa League winner this year, and my Champions League winner. It really comes down to two teams, and it's the two teams that were in the final last year. PSG and Arsenal. I think it's going to be a repeat of that in the final this year, and I think it's going to be different. I think Arsenal will get the job done. I think they've done enough to um, become better than PSG than last year. I think they were better than PSG in the final, but PSG just held on and were able to do enough to get it to penalties, where obviously they um, took control of that. But I think Arsenal's done enough. I think Arsenal will also get another striker, or not a striker necessarily, but at least a forward by the time that the transfer window ends. And I think Arsenal will be your Champions League winners at the end of this 2026-27 season. And I think that should do it on my Premier League, Europa League, and Champions League predictions. Maybe if I want to throw another one out there, my Premier League player of the year is going to be Declan Rice. If he plays enough, I don't know. I guess he might not play until like October, but I don't know. We'll see. But that's who my early pick is for Premier League player of the year. But I'm super excited. I love the Prem. I love Arsenal, and I'm super excited to watch them win the title again.